Terror in Tabasco, the macabre story of Gumaro de Dios. Today, cannibalism is described as an inhumane and despicable act, a practice where a being feeds on members of its own species. When these agents entered the place, they witnessed an incredible and shocking scene, a terrifying scene with the protagonist of this story being a person identified as Gumaro de Dios Arias. Inside his home, he had different stews and roasts made with a peculiar ingredient, identified as Raul Gonzalez, who was the lover of this individual. Gumaro de Dios was born on April 7, 1978, in La Azucena, Tabasco, Mexico, the son of Candelario de Dios and Nana Arias, and had 10 siblings. At the age of 6, he was abused by a relative. From here, his behavior began to change. He was seen playing with dolls, and even when playing with other children, he would tell them he was a girl and felt attracted to them. Sometimes he would play as a gunslinger, running around shouting, "I am a bad boy, but also a bad woman." It was clear his behavior was not normal, but as he was still a child, it was not given much importance. However, as the years passed, he grew up with deep traumas. As a teenager, he had an accident where he was run over by a trailer. After recovering from the incident, his behavior remained strange. Sometimes he would isolate himself and be seen petting a mare, and when no one was watching, he would have relations with it. He fantasized that it was an American woman with whom he would have children. As a teenager, it was noticeable that he had a slight mental delay in addition to suffering from schizophrenia, as he was sometimes seen talking to himself and laughing. When it came to working, he was very lazy. When asked to help in the field, he said he didn't want to be a farmer and stayed lying down doing nothing. Constantly in the afternoons, he would go out and get drunk, and he was seen consuming drugs, which became routine. People who saw him mentioned that sometimes he behaved like a woman and at other times like the devil himself. At 14, his father, tired of his son's behavior and poor conduct, enlisted him in the army. Far from correcting his conduct, Gumaro had a confrontation with a lieutenant and was sent to a cell. Upon release, he felt great anger, took a knife, and injured the lieutenant in the chest and legs before fleeing the army. He returned to his hometown, La Azucena, in Cardenas, Tabasco. Instead of changing, he became more addicted to various substances, until one day, in a fit of madness, he committed a very regrettable act, abusing his 1-year-old nephew. The baby was reported to be in critical condition, although the family did not know who had harmed the child. They discovered it later when Gumaro confessed. In 2000, he was arrested and taken to the Cardenas prison. Initially, he thought he was arrested for what he did to his nephew, but after serving his sentence, he learned it was for stealing a tape recorder and 5 shirts. He spent a year and 6 months in prison. After his family did not visit him, he decided to go to Chetumal in the state of Quintana Roo. In 2004, a man challenged him with a machete in Mahahual, a Maya area near the sea. The man started insulting and mocking him, so in a moment of distraction, Gumaro took the machete and started slicing him like a fish, leaving him on the ground with wounds. Gumaro mentions that after fleeing, the spirit of this man appeared to him and tormented him until his last days. After this, he went to a region called El Petén, between Mexico and Belize, where he wandered until he found an abandoned construction to live in for some time. There, he met an old man referred to as the Sage, a Mayan sorcerer to whom he promised to kill 3 people. In the same village, he met a 19-year-old young man named Raul Gonzalez, alias Pelon or Guacho, who had a distinctive tattoo of a woman. Raul had also deserted the Army's 31st Infantry Battalion for stealing a weapon. Soon they became friends, bonding over their issues with alcohol and drugs, transitioning from being good friends to becoming lovers. They moved into an abandoned hut located 100 meters from kilometer 216 on the Chetumal Playa del Carmen highway. The hut was part of a real estate company's plan to develop a residential subdivision. Since neither of them worked and had no way to support themselves, they sometimes went to the coastal city, valuable items from houses, and offered their services to tourists in exchange for money. On December 12, 2004, Gumaro de Dios's terror story was written. That day, they were doing their usual routine of consuming illegal substances and alcohol. When the alcohol ran out and having no money, Gumaro remembered that Raul owed him 500 pesos. He asked for the money to buy more alcohol. Raul said he didn't have it, which enraged Gumaro. He grabbed the first thing he saw, a thick electrical cable, and started hitting his lover. When Raul passed out, Gumaro hung him. When Raul woke up, Gumaro asked for the money again. Raul said he had spent it, so in an attempt to defend himself, Gumaro grabbed a concrete block and threw it at Raul's head. Once on the ground, Gumaro kept hitting him until he noticed Raul's head was crushed. As Raul was still moving, Gumaro took the cable, wrapped it around his neck, and pulled tightly until Raul stopped moving. He then hung him again. Later that night, in a euphoric state, Gumaro decided to eat him. He took a knife and started cutting Raul into pieces, removing the tattoo and gutting him to extract the viscera. The next day, he went to the market, bought some ingredients with Raul's money, and when he returned, he grilled the heart, some ribs, and a kidney. He made a broth with the viscera, cut the left thigh into fillets, and cooked it. He used the fat to fry tortillas. The following day, he took the other leg and cooked it similarly. He also tried strips of raw meat and 4 ribs. He fed on Raul's flesh all weekend. After that, the place filled with flies, which disgusted him, so he didn't eat the remaining ribs. A young man known as La Parca approached the hut and was greeted by Gumaro, who immediately offered him a piece of meat. The young man accepted until he noticed the meat's strange appearance. He looked inside and saw body parts scattered everywhere. Horrified, he ran away. Of what Gumaro had done spread quickly, and soon neighbors approached to verify the young man's story. They saw Gumaro in daylight, handling the limbs, but no one knew what to do until a taxi driver notified the municipal and judicial police of the events. At 7:40 a.m. on Tuesday, December 14th, 2004, 8 agents from the Jabali group arrived at the scene. They were shocked and terrified by the unusual sight, finding Gumaro asleep next to the torso of the corpse, lying in a hammock and hugging the headless and limbless putrefied body. They also found some ingredients used to cook the meat, a cooler with beers, remnants of inhalants, and a toothbrush covered in blood and pieces of raw meat. One of the agents asked him to get up, and they quickly handcuffed him. They mentioned he seemed like an animal, like a primitive man. The news quickly spread across national media. In an interview, he said, "I thought about taking everything out from inside, the heart and the ribs. It was delicious, tasted like lamb. That's why I ate the kidney. I only left the skin because it was too tough." After his arrest, he accepted all charges without any remorse, stating he didn't regret anything and had always been curious to try human flesh. He was transferred to Playa del Carmen prison, where other inmates refused to share a cell with him. During his stay in the municipal jail of Playa del Carmen, Gumaro de Dios began to terrify the prison population. They described him as aggressive. On one occasion, he cut off part of his left ear to eat it, claiming he missed the taste of human flesh. Months later, he threatened the prison cook because the food had no flavor. He was feared by high-risk inmates. He often talked to himself, stared intensely at others, and many feared he might attack them. When journalists and psychiatrists visited, he introduced himself saying, "Hi, I'm the cannibal," as if proud of what he had done. Due to his behavior, they began giving him antidepressants and sleeping pills, which made him sleep for long periods. On March 20th, 2007, a judge decided to transfer him to a social rehabilitation center in Morelos, considering him mentally ill. There, he underwent psychological and psychiatric evaluations to determine his legal situation. In September of 2008, he was returned to the Social Rehabilitation Center in Chetumal, where he was isolated from other inmates in a special cell. Many mentioned he was feared for his insatiable taste for human flesh, though it could also be thought that he did this to intimidate others. Studies confirmed he suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, a condition diagnosed in people with constant delusions accompanied by auditory hallucinations that can disturb their environment and perception of the world. He mentioned he was still looking for in September 2008. He returned to the Social Rehabilitation Center in Chetumal, where he was isolated from the other prisoners and placed in a special cell. Many mentioned that he was feared for his insatiable taste for human flesh, though it could also be thought that he did this just to ensure that no one would mess with him and to seem intimidating. The truth is that after the studies conducted on him, it was determined that he suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, a condition diagnosed in people who have constant delusions accompanied by auditory hallucinations that can disturb their environment and perception of the world. He mentioned that he was still looking for his third victim and that he seemed to have already found him. It was another inmate who, according to his words, made his blood boil just by looking at him. He added that by fulfilling his promise, the sage would give him what was promised, and once done, he would live for 150 more years, among other things he mentioned. He said that killing is like taking the life of a chicken, and added that by eating his lover, he acquired all his power, meaning the abilities of the subject would become part of him. Since Raoul, his partner, was a good Mason, he would now be much better. From the studies conducted, it was discovered that he suffered from acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, AIDS. Only 4 years later, on Tuesday, September 11, 2012, he died in the General Hospital of Chetumal, Quintana Roo, at 34 years of age. He was buried in the Rancheria Azucena in the municipality of Cardenas, Tabasco. His case inspired the song Cannibal, performed by Kim Kai and Lupe Esparza, which served as the theme for the Argentine film La Hija del Cannibal, The Cannibal's Daughter, as well as a book. The hut where Gumaro de Dios murdered and devoured a man became an office for marketing lots for another residential housing project. A quite surprising case that makes our imagination and thoughts soar, as we cannot decipher the thoughts of the mind. What things remain deep within a human being?